Okay, continuing on, we want to think about when we look at a particular ad. Much of this has to do with print, but you can apply the same principles to a video ad as well. We want to think about the organization of the codes and conventions, which was all this stuff, right? How do they organize it on a page? That's called the layout of the page. Okay, so the organization of the codes and conventions equals page layout. How is the page laid out? If you think of layout, where that comes from. The elements that they choose help to construct the ideology or the thesis or the main argument and persuade the reader, often more forcefully through captions and written text. Okay, so you want to think about the visual plus the written elements, put them together. How are they laid out? And maybe they're going to focus on some kind of like red font, or they want to focus on an image. You want to ask, like, why did they do that? What are they trying to say? Alright, so the ways of reading the ideology we mentioned already, and the theory comes from Stuart Hall, who was a British sociologist. He proposed that audiences respond in 3 ways to reading media text, depending on their position. So the first one is the dominant reading. So we're using basically 3 words, 3 different words for the same thing. So the dominant reading is, as we discussed, the intended reading. By the advertiser. So that's what they want us to see and to think. Okay, so it should be very obvious. Is Nike saying, buy these shoes because you can play basketball better in them, or whatever. Okay, so we're using words like overt, dominant, intended. Okay, so that's all focused on the advertiser's point of view. It's what they're trying to say. Then, over against that, well, maybe I'll pick a different color for the sake of variety here. Over against that, there's an oppositional reading. Oppositional, to oppose, to go against, right? Oppositional. And as we mentioned before, this is the implied, or just another form of the same, implicit reading. And this is unintended by the advertiser. Okay, so this is the audience's view. So the overt or dominant, that's preferred by the advertiser. That's what they want you to see and think. Okay, so that's when you see the commercial, if you agree with the advertiser, then you can say, okay, I got the overt meaning. But oppositional involves a rejection of the preferred reading. So it opposes, it goes against. So we saw the ad for authentic Chinese cuisine. Well, in the previous videos, the dominant reading of that, the authentic Chinese cuisine ad was just trying to say, hey, our Chinese food is really legit. really authentic, really traditional. But then the oppositional rejection of that was like, hey, there's racism in this ad. I'm not down with that, right? And then thirdly, there can be a negotiated position between these two, okay? So the third is, you might be able to find something that's okay there, and you might come over here and say, okay, there are some ideas, and then you put it together, and you come up with the negotiated reading. So you negotiate between the dominant and the oppositional. So let's practice on an ad here. Alright, so let's take a look at this ad. It's a bit grainy. Sorry for the pixelation. Alright, what is our product? The product. Who is the advertiser? Well, yeah, should be pretty obvious. We have Marlboro, and they are selling us cigarettes. Alright, how do I know that? Well, he's smoking a cigarette. Got a cigarette box here, and you got their name. Now let's think about some of the codes and conventions. Okay, what are the images and the other features of the ad? The features. What's the dominant color here? Or dominant colors? We have red and white. Alright? His white hat connects to the white lettering and also to the white of the cigarette box. So red and white clearly are the unifying colors, and the dominant color is red, right? Because his shirt is red. So that's definitely a dominant color here. Now, who is portrayed in the ad? Who do we have here? What's his profession? Gender, race, all those kinds of things. We want to think about that, right? Because we're trying to get to the ideology of this ad. What are they trying to tell us? So we have a kind of cowboy, or you might say a rancher. How do I know that? Got a cowboy hat. You can see a bit of a horse here, horsehair. He's got these things, which are called the reins, to control a horse. He's wearing leather chaps. The reins are also made out of leather. And we can say, where is he? What's the setting? Well, he's outdoors. Because what you do if you're a rancher herds cows. So his job is to ride around on a horse and make sure the cows stay together and whatnot. Now, notice he's, gazing very directly at the camera. He's got this direct gaze. He's sitting upright and he's confident. And this kind of job is very outdoorsy. And we would say kind of like rugged and tough. This kind of image of masculinity, because he's a man, right? So we're dealing with masculinity, ruggedness, smoking cigarettes. Now notice here, okay, his body actually blends together with the cigarette pack. He's united with the cigarettes. Almost like literally. His body, literally, you can't see a line there, right? On the pack, it just goes right into his arm. And he's dressed in the Marlboro colors with the white and the red. Okay, and that connects back to the cigarette pack. Of course, there are 2 cigarettes standing above. The package is open, and he's lighting up the cigarette. He's ready to smoke. All right, let's put all this together, and there's a little reading exercise here of this particular ad. So let's think about what's the dominant or overt reading here. A dominant reading of this ad identifies the association between the codes, masculinity, and the product, right? Colors and the font and everything, and the image setting. Masculinity, that's the main ideological concept, and the product. The man in the image is upright, a look of self-confidence, and he's leading an active life because it's a very outdoorsy and physically demanding job. So it makes him seem like he's, very active. The reins, belt, and partial image of the chaps combined with what appears to be a horse's mane suggest he is a rancher, an occupation requiring physical work with the dominant belief that this work is performed by men. Okay, so how does that connect to the product? Well, they're saying it's natural, you'll be strong and rugged and kind of manly if you smoke. Does that make sense? Right? That's what they're trying to portray to us. Well, we don't really like this reading, because in this case it's a bad product. You can't really make cigarettes good. So how would we come against Marlboro cigarettes? An oppositional reading of this Marlboro ad might reference the irony, that's when the opposite happens of what you expect, of an image which relies on masculinity to sell a product which causes impotence in men, as well as heart disease and cancer, which tends to sap one's strength, so it's weakness, disease, and it's unnatural. Not to mention the foul smell characteristic of smokers, not something women generally find attractive. So it's unattractive versus how they made him seem. So that's how we oppose and go against what the product is supposedly selling us, right? Instead, you're going to get this opposite inversion of what they're actually selling. You get a heart attack. You're not going outside ranching with all these animals and, doing all this heavy, intensive work. Well, it's going to wear you down and slowly kill you. Can we find a middle position? Okay, a negotiated reading of the ad identifies the masculine image that the advertisement projects combined with the stereotype of the strong, silent type, and acknowledges the health risks associated with this behavior while linking smoking with glamour and success, because they try to make him look really cool. Additionally, the ad presents the image of a strong, healthy, and natural male linked to the outdoors, leading a traditional life, while there's the oppositional. The health consequences of the smoking manufactured cigarettes makes this ironic. Okay, so you've identified reading number 1, you've added reading number 2, put them together, you have a negotiated reading. Okay, we're going to do practice on these and many other ads. So again, think about who or what's being represented on all of these categories, and you can click the link and watch the video and try to identify these things for yourself.